Welcome to Insights and Inspiration. I'm Andrew Marlowe,
I'm Monica Marlowe.
and tonight we are here with our special guest, Hal Greenberg.
Hi, Hal.
Hi, I'm Hal Marlowe.
You can be Hal Marlowe tonight.
That's fine. So we are here to talk about The Awakened.
Well, we're here to talk about a bunch of things.
Well, we are here to
that
talk about a
Samurai
bunch of things.
Sheepdog does, and Hal specifically.
Right. So why don't we start with Hal?
Yes.
Why don't you tell everybody who you are and what it is that you do?
Well, I am Hal Greenberg Marlowe, and I've been working in the Marlowe's a joke, if anyone who doesn't know me. I've been in the RPG industry for a fairly long time, back when the 3.0s were pretty popular, and then I took a little hiatus. A publisher kept asking me to write a book, and I kind of knew, as you can tell by my weight, that it's like exercise where I would need somebody there with me to do it because I'm just not that inspirational to do it by myself. So I countered him and asked if I could do an anthology because I had a really good idea, I thought, but I didn't really want to write the whole book myself. And he said yes. So that was The Awakened, and it came out in 2012. And then we did The Awakened 2 and Awakened Modern, and we also had this, and then we wanted to work on some of the spin-off stuff, like Isle of Bones was my favorite idea for an island, and I wanted to bring in a lot of people to work on the anthology for that, and that's what's currently on Kickstarter now. It's basically the island of Grimatan, which is the main big island, is all human. So in order to get creatures and humanoids and magic involved, that's where the islands come in. So when you speak of just the anthology of the original Awakens, there's no magic. It's all human. It's kind of Game of Thrones with more magic in there, but not any incest or stuff like that. So, but the fact that they're all human and stuff like that. And then the islands is where you can get crazy, and that's also a neat way to introduce humanoid races, creatures, magic, and other stuff, for RPGs or just for people who enjoy a little bit more than just a good fantasy romp.
Right. So the Awakened's low magic, but I believe
Correct.
that I say I believe, like I don't know.
Like we've never been there before.
Exactly.
But it's when on the first two books, and I'm assuming the modern followed the same trend. When somebody turns 16, they have a slim chance to come into some power.
It's like 19, but yes.
Yeah.
Basically, on that birthday month, when the two moons kind of cross over, there's a very slight chance that you may become awakened. And I like the idea that that could be a good thing or a bad thing for you. It could be a good big thing or bad thing for your people, or your city, your tribe, whoever you live with. Also, the power is very random, so it could be as easy or simple as when you become awakened, you either get a companion animal, which has basically the IQ of the animal goes up to basically a humanoid, and they become sentient, and they can actually speak with you telepathically. Or you get a small wedge of a certain type of magic, be it just water-based, fire-based, but it goes specific. I mean, you can do necromancy, so it's a bunch of different things. Some people have the ability to, as you guys know, to split into other versions of themselves when they concentrate, stuff like that. So you can get a mouse, you could get a lion. You could get
a lion dog.
Yeah, exactly. You can get, but I mean, even the smallest sometimes creatures can make some of the coolest stories, and some of the most unusual powers people have brought up to me have brought some of the neatest ideas and concepts around. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of limitless with that. And the way since I was a gamer first, the way I kind of wrote it up so the magic wasn't too overpowering was mental constitution. Which means the more magic you use, the more likely you have to recharge. And if you use too much, you could pass out or even die. So that way, somebody who has the power of fire can't just burn the whole place down and call it a day, and there's the world.
Right.
So so that's pretty much what happens to a slim amount of people, and they're, like I said, we call them awakened. Other people call them different things, but as a reference, they're all awakened as far as but different tribes or people may call it something a little bit differently.
Gotcha.
And it's just the adventures, and then the fantasy one is true fantasy in a made-up world, and then Awakened Modern is set in, I guess it was 2018, 17 when we wrote it, so literally modern, set for that year. And so it's a very modern genre, and in fact the cover has the mountain or the lions in the background from the Museum of Art from Chicago, just to give people kind of an iconic location. So it as a modern thing, it really acts almost like a superpower, and it even does in the medieval terms. It's almost more of a superpower than it is magic, but in order for medieval magic, makes more sense to call it that than a superpower.
Yep. So we talked to you about writing this though back in like 2015.
It was a while ago, yeah.
Or was it 2016?
It was 15 or 16 where I had the ideas, and I wanted to really do the Isle of Bones first because, like I said, it always had an interesting concept and feel to me and a look to me. So for some reason, maybe because I like dogs, I like the Bone Island. I don't know, but and then and what I love to do is I like to bring people I've worked in with before, and I like to bring in new people too, because how else would people get credit and grow up in the industry if they haven't had a chance? So I always like to add a mix, and you guys weren't new.
We were total strangers to you.
Well, not total.
Correct. Yeah, but not total, but correct. But I sense people out, and I knew your work in RPGs, and really writing adventures is very similar to writing fiction. You're just taking out the stats. That's kind of how I feel about fiction. So if I like something that you guys wrote adventure-wise, and I can see something clicking and working, and when we met and hung out and liked each other, I wanted to give that offer to you guys because it is different and it's a different challenge, but it's a lot of fun. And, so I said, hey, do you guys want to do this? And you said, yeah. And I said, give me a little bit of time to get it together. And then it took me more time to get it together. And then we got it together. And then every, real life happens here and there. I mean, we're a small publisher, literally independent publisher. And it took a while for everyone to bring in their stories. And the editor, who is a good friend of mine, was having some stuff going on, so it took him a little longer. I mean, just real life happens, and then we also didn't want to do it over Christmas, so we wanted to wait until this month in order to launch it. And we launched it at a very low opening price to hopefully get people to go in and make sure they know it's going to fund, grab the book, hopefully enjoy the book, and go from there. And if it does well or whatever, I'm definitely open to exploring more adventures on Isle of Bones or even going to another island.
Well, to say that it was fun, Andrew didn't die.
We had fun.
Oh,
we had fun.
We had a great time.
Now, this is a question for you two. Would it have been less pokey stabby if I would have said, write me two different stories and you could have each written your own, or did you like the way it was where you wrote it together?
No, it
really worked out well for us to write it together.
Okay.
But there pardon me.
There were some times when it was pokey stabby. But
why is this in here?
Yeah.
Why do you keep taking it out?
I edited out the same passage like 2 or 3 times. I'm like, why do you keep putting that back in there? He's like, because that's what I wanted to say. And I'm like, I don't like that. He's like, I don't care. So I did let him have that one. I did let him have that one passage.
I personally love writing with somebody else to bounce the ideas off of or to add different stuff to it. But I know other people, it goes both ways with people. And some people, like to do it one way and like to do the other. I usually end up writing the outline and the general ideas and then a lot of the details. And then my partner will write some of the battle scenes in and fill in the blanks. With you guys, I actually had the idea for the cover and I had these characters in mind. So I actually gave you guys the bones of the story and you guys really took it and made it a great story. So I was really appreciative of that. But it was also cool that you guys got to see your characters on the cover too. It was definitely a win-win when it came to that, because I knew how, when I started the Isle of Bones and I knew what races and what they wanted to do and how I wanted to make it, I knew what I wanted, and I don't want to spoil it, but I also knew what I wanted for the ending, because that's a very unusual ending.
Well, to be fair,
the story, so
yeah.
So I wrote the first draft. I actually, after we all talked, I sat down and I wrote the story. I wrote probably 75% of the first draft. And we talked about stuff, and there were things that I didn't want to write and that I felt like I wasn't able to write. And so then once I kind of wrote and it was just the first draft. I mean, I'm not saying I wrote the whole story, but I wrote the first, but I wrote the first draft, and then I told Andrew, I said, I need you to fill in these parts, definitely. And I need you to so then for a year and a half, we kind of passed it back and forth, and we didn't actually like the way we ended it the first time. When I wrote it very in mind with what we had talked about, and I wrote it one way, and we didn't like it. And so for a year and a half, we kind of tabled it. So for a year, we kind of worked on it.
We would come back to it and beat on it from time to time. It wasn't like it was sitting there dormant.
Right.
I get it. And we were delayed too. So
yeah,
it makes sense.
So then eventually at one point, I don't remember, but Andrew's like, I know what's wrong and I know how to fix it. And I was like, well, what are you thinking? And he told me, and I was like, oh my God. And it opened up the story in a way like you, I don't want to ruin it, because I think the story is better for the way we changed it. And I really liked the story before, but I really love the story now. And
great. And you know what? Neat. It was, I mean, in that way, it was fortunate that it took it so long, because if it didn't take so long, we probably would have had to grab that first ending. So in a sense, the fact that you went from liking it to loving it because we had the time, that was really nice.
Yeah. And so there were some other fun things that cropped up here and there in writing it that I really got into. She says she wrote 75% of the first draft, and that's probably correct. But there was a chunk at the very beginning of the first draft that is, I think, survived mostly untouched through every revision, and that was the walk that Halifax does.
Yeah, no, we never changed that.
And that was something that I wanted to do, because we were talking about the character being a sheriff, and so I kind of went back to Andy Griffith of all things, and was like, the thing that they talked about when in all the reruns was that Andy would go around and he talked to people and he listened, and I was like, that's what I want Halifax to do. I want him to be as good at listening and solving problems.
Man, now I wish I'd had him whistling.
No.
That might have been depending what he was whistling.
That's a bridge too far. It's a bridge too far. But but like when I was writing Halifax for those scenes, the two things I drew on were not fantasy. The things I was looking at for modeling Halifax were Andy Griffith and Eureka.
Okay.
And then I
channeling your inner Eureka.
Well, then I ran him through being a dwarf and did all the dwarfiness to him, and it was a lot of fun to write Halifax. I wouldn't mind revisiting that character at some point in the future. If you
I would love to. Let's see what happens. Yeah.
Wow.
But, and that's one thing that I have to admit I always do is if we end up doing a sequel, I always invite all the original authors to go back and either reuse the characters or start other ones depending on how they felt their story was, because that's one of the things I love about anthologies is they're mini stories and there's so many characters and so many different ideas available that you can either go back to something that you said, like I want to visit them again, or you could sit there and go, you know what, I think that story's kind of complete. Now I want to do something with this. So yeah, I mean, and I have a bunch of ideas for characters and people and stories in there too. I had Kevin Glusing, who's the editor, or it really kind of created the book and the Kickstarter, but is also working on the RPG. I gave him a story to run with too that I really wanted to tell, and it was a story of just an older, kind of a not very bright thief who keeps getting caught, but his awakened friend is a mouse who would always get him out of the jams. And so basically he was kind of a decent thief only because of his mouse friend. He'd get caught in jail. He'd sit in jail. As soon as it got quiet, the mouse would go down, steal the keys off the, whoever's kind of watching guard, and bring the keys back to him, and he'd somehow get away. And and it wasn't because he was this tactical genius that everyone had to keep an eye on. He really had no clue, and if it wasn't for the mouse being so smart, and being more intelligent than him,
I love it.
Yeah, he wouldn't have been able to figure a lot of that stuff out. So, there's hilarious. So many different ideas and concepts you can kind of go with. It's just fun.
It is fun. It is a fun. It's a fun setting to play around in.
So you said that there's going to be the RPG, and I noticed that that's coming in December.
Hopefully, Kevin's kind of working on it with me in the background, where he used a lot of my original kind of setting material and, throws me stuff here and there. But he's really working on it now and burning through it. And if you guys have any interest, I mean, when we do it on Kickstarter, I know that he would probably love to have input from you guys, or possibly even you guys could be a goal or something too, if you wanted to add something to it, or if you have some.
Are you thinking
ideas,
of it?
But
is it going to be its own system? Is it going to be system agnostic? Or?
No, it's going to be based off Pathfinder first.
Okay.
The original Pathfinder 1E, and possibly go into 2E and possibly 5th edition. But we already had Clinton Boomer, who wrote stories in the original 2 books, kind of gave us some great ideas on what class to use for the magic and how to make that kind of fair and balanced. And Kevin has been working on the Book of Many Things 1 and 2, which has been giving him so much just general kind of unique stuff that he's actually kind of thrown some ideas in there that he wanted to use for our setting to see how they worked and balanced and played and feedbacked. So he's actually getting kind of feedback without even realizing people are giving feedback.
That's cool.
So yeah, so it's been working out real well, and it's his baby, and he's been trying to get it out. It's going to use the same cover, so you guys will be getting a double build as far as your characters on the cover. Yeah, I just really like that cover. I like the other ones
it's beautiful
a lot
cover.
too, but I wanted to make sure for an RPG that people knew it wasn't just going to be humans. So I thought that would probably be the best cover to use. And since I had the cover created, I got the rights to use it whenever I wanted. So I figured, I like it a lot, so let's use it. Yeah, exactly. I mean, we could have gone for a new cover, but instead we'll go for some nice original art inside, stuff like that.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So since we got started a little late, you also, in addition to doing fiction and new games, you also have a charity, which is what you were kind of getting off the ground when we met.
I do, and also board games, which I totally forgot, and Ken Shannon would kill me. But I'm kind of an art director and assistant doing board games, and we have a couple out with WizKids already, and a couple more coming out with them. So that's kind of cool that I've been able to work with WizKids, and they've been great. But the charity is the RCIRF, and it's it was an awesome charity, and it totally came through by accident, and it's there for anybody who needs it, who write or creates for role-playing games. Basically what happened was, and it still happens now, but not as much, I think, which is a great thing, is at one point I felt like every week I was seeing another post with somebody saying, hey, I don't have great insurance, or I don't have insurance because I'm a freelancer. And these are people who I've known for years, or bought books, that have written, or artists, because freelancers don't necessarily have insurance. Mm-hmm. And can you donate to help me? And I would kind of joke around and say, you need to get ill at the beginning of the month, for me, because right. At the end of the month I've got my mortgage, and that's a little tighter. So, not to be mean, but sometimes if you're sick at the end of the month, I might have already given or whatever. So I simply posted in Facebook, does anybody know of a charity that I could maybe give money to that would help role-playing game designers and creators and stuff like that? And people were like, oh, there's one for the comic book industry and da-da-da-da-da, this. And then I got a couple of people, why don't you start one? And I'm like, yeah, right.
Because I got time to do that.
Yeah, and a couple of people messaged me and said, no, seriously, why don't you start one? And I was like, well, seriously, I don't know how to do a nonprofit. What are you kidding me? I'm going to get charged with something, but I got lucky and I got a bunch of people who were willing to help out a lot. And we ended up getting a great, accountant who is very familiar and worked with nonprofits before, Liz Liddell. We have Rachel Ventura on the board. We have Steve Long is on our board of directors. BJ Hensley is our PR person if anyone ever needs it. There's even a new Humble bundle coming out, I think tomorrow, which the proceeds will be donated to the RCRF. I think they just sent us an email saying, hey, we have another one coming out. So keep an eye on the Humble bundles, and one of them will be for the proceeds will go to us. So we love those guys, and we thank very much. They do take care of us a couple times a year. And, and then we also have a group of a board of applicants who are not part of the board of directors. So basically what happens, in case anyone's curious, which I'm sure now's your time to take a nap, but you send an application in for money. You fill up the application on our website. It's I think it's RCR. God, I don't want to screw this up.
I think it is RCRF, isn't it? .org?
.org maybe?
That's what I thought.
I think so. Good Lord, I probably should. Well, I should have had it planned, but I don't want to. I don't want to mess with that computer because I'm afraid I'll lose my screen.
I'll make sure it's in the show notes.
A link is in the thing.
Yes.
Perfect.
On YouTube, and I won't be able to do it here for Twitch, but I'll definitely make sure it goes up.
No, that's fine. And it's also on Facebook. You can look up the Role Playing Creators Relief Fund, and we have a Facebook page there too, and you can there. And then I send it to the application board. They look it over and make sure it meets the criteria, because there is some criteria. So I don't want to tell you that every person who applies gets money, because it's an emergency relief fund. So I can't pay my rent because a publisher didn't pay me or went bankrupt. As much as that stinks, that's not really what we're there for. We're really there for medical or emergencies or something like that happens, and we have been able to donate to a bunch of people, and I've been very happy to do that, and they've, it's helped. And in some cases, as sad as it is, the relief we gave them is kind of a puddle in the pool. I don't want to say a drop, but let's say a puddle, because it wasn't bad, it was decent. But some of these bills are just crazy for these people. Yeah. So us giving a couple hundred or $1,000 or whatever, to somebody who owes $80,000, while it's awesome, that's still so scary.
What does it stand for again?
We've been happy to do that.
What does it stand for again?
Role Playing Creators Relief Fund,
okay.
RCRF.
Okay, role playing. That's what I thought.
And it's for anybody who's in the industry, be it cartographers, artists, designers, really anybody who works on stuff like that. Because that was my problem in my mind was, being freelancers or possibly working for some smaller companies, you don't get benefits. I mean, you guys have made, RPG stuff. I've made RPG stuff. Heck, I've made RPG stuff that I've probably made 2 cents an hour if I was lucky. Because of the, hey, based on this and the profits and this, and we'll see how much it sells, and I get a check for $1.15, and I'm like, but I worked on that for so long, and it just happens. So I mean, I know a lot of people do it out of love, and I know that some of us it's a second job, and for us, the relief fund may not necessarily need to be there for us, because hopefully with our jobs we have decent insurance and stuff. It's really there for some of the guys who, like I said, who don't have a second job, or maybe are disabled or can't get a full-time job, and this is what they do for their income and stuff like that. And again, being an artist, no matter what of the written word, of paint, you never really get what you're worth or get paid enough. I know that. I mean, that's one of the most heart-wrenching things I do is making offers to people to pay them to do stuff, because yes, most of them say yes, but I know they're worth more, and I'd love to pay them more. But I'll be honest, I haven't made any money off The Awakened. Technically, I've lost money because I had to prepay for a lot of the covers in order to get them done. So as much as some of these people are making a little bit of money off of it and off RPGs, I've definitely lost money off RPGs. I mean, if you want to hear a great story, I'll tell you how Mystic Eye Games is no longer around and why Samurai Sheepdog is selling Mystic Eye Games stuff. I mean, I've posted that on my blog before, and I've had people, talk about the great destruction of, of the 3.0, the D20 boom and stuff like that. But, yeah, I mean, that's literally, Jim Butler, who's a very good friend of mine, once told me the best way to make $10,000 in the RPG industry is to start with $20,000.
It's true. Hey, it looks like Mage Strike put it up. It's rcfcharity.org.
Perfect. Thank you. And Mage is the editor on the Awakened book that you guys worked on, the Isle of Bones, and he also plays into my bi-monthly games and stuff on the weekends and stuff. He's a good guy. Don't let him hear me. Make sure you mute that. I don't want him to know he's a good guy.
Oh no!
Too late. Did you have anything?
Damn it!
We covered actually most of the stuff I had written down.
We had some questions, but we wanted to make sure we covered them.
Rolled through most of my questions in his intro. I was like, no, it's fine, perfect.
That's what being a professional is all about, people.
He's predicted everything.
Right. So I have one that you probably don't have predicted because I didn't have it predicted. It actually came from one of our regular viewers.
All right.
Our single largest patron. So he would like to know, he said, one thing that interests me is when designers and developers, writers prepare to run or play sessions for game systems they are professionally involved in. If you can compare and contrast it with how you play or run systems you are not professionally involved in. So
that's an awfully thought-provoking question from Michael.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it is, and it's a big change. I mean, it is a big different thing. Just like playtesting the board games we work on, to a certain extent, and it sounds weird, it's not fun. And the reason why it's not as much fun when you're doing it for work purposes, or you're playtesting something, or you're working on something to design it, is because your brain is kind of set in a different mode. You're not in the fun, play me mode. You're in the, can I break this? What are they going to say? Are they going to ooh and ah me and laugh at the point they need to? Or whatever mode versus let's just have fun and roll some dice and come up with stuff. And I usually don't DM. One of the things I kind of did from a designer standpoint throughout my RPG stuff is I always came at it from a player's point of view. So a lot of the stuff that I created always had stuff in there that players could use, no matter what it was. Like Bluffside was a giant city that a lot of DMs bought, but I made sure that there was new races, new classes, new magic items, stuff that I wanted as a player in there as well. So if you were a player and had the book, you could check it out, or you could grab it from the DM and go, oh, that item is cool, or I want to play that race. So I always add that kind of stuff in there because my opinion is, yes, it may be good for the DM, but if it's not of an interest to the players, the DM might not pull the trigger on the item. And plus, that's what always I like to make stuff, hopefully, that I'd want to do and I want to play and be. So I always try to make sure there's stuff in there for that.
So have you ever gotten to play anything that you've written?
I've played in Bluffside before, and it was weird as a player. Not because Bluffside is so big, it's not like I could be there like, oh, let's go down the street, turn left, do this. And because it wasn't a pre-written adventure, it wasn't something that I needed to not know. And that was just a little weird to kind of like be in your world. I know that sounds a little odd, but it was a little weird, but it was fun. And the guy had a great idea, and we had a great time playing through there. So other than that, I really haven't played a lot in that settings besides when I'm working on it. The thing that we just, like I was telling you guys before we started, is we just finished 3.5 years of playing Rise of the Rune Lords, which I had nothing to do with, and we're starting this weekend Return of the Rune Lords, which I had nothing to do with, and we had a great time. But I mean, we played twice a month, every other Saturday, and it's a group of people. We play on Roll20. Some of the people I've only known through other people. Some of the people like Warren I've known since Thunderhead Games, so 20, which is so scary to say, but like 20 years and stuff like that. But yeah, I can't believe I won an Ennie like 20 years ago. Yeah, I won an Ennie when Ennies weren't even a thing.
You were in the back hallway.
Let me tell you, back in my day when I won an Ennie, it was only an N.
Oh.
And sadly, it wasn't even for one of my books. It was for a book for Bastion that I worked on as an art director for Jim Butler. But I mean, not that, you know.
Hey, an Ennie's an Ennie. I wouldn't be complaining.
But I was still saying it was kind of funny. It wasn't even for like a Mystic Eye or a Thunderhead book. It was actually for stuff I worked on for him. So, but yeah, so you know, so that's really the difference. I think is a fun level, because I don't know if you guys like, you know, when your designer mind is on, it's harder to have fun. Do you guys agree with that?
It's to some degree.
So I had a very interesting experience. I think it was the very same. Oh no, it was the year before. It was the year before we met you, and we were at the same event, and it was at a different location. That's how I know it was a different year. And one of our friends, he's now our friend, we met him there. His name is also Michael. He brought a card game that is based on
later.
That was that a year later?
That was later.
Oh, okay. So it was the next year after we met you. And he had a card game based on tattoos, and his idea was really very interesting. And it was weird because there I sat the year after I'd published my first RPG anything, and I'm sitting at a table with like all of these people who have names that are on books in my gaming room, and they're like playing this game, and they're like like trying to figure out how to break it.
It was me.
It was you,
it was
Owen.
Me, Owen, and Jeff Grubb.
Yeah, Jeff Grubb.
I'm sitting there. I'm just like,
yeah. So we're sitting there.
Owen Stevens, Jeff Grubb.
Yeah, I mean, and so
how am I here?
So we're sitting. I'm sitting there watching them play this game, and I'm actually like playing it, but it was a weird experience, and I'm watching Jeff and Owen like they're digging into this game, and I'm trying to like figure out how to enjoy it, because I'm like you, I'm a gamer, not a designer gamer. I mean, every time I approached anything, I always approached it as, if I were a player, how would I engage with this? Not right. If I were a GM, how would I tell this? So I had to, so I'm sitting there, I'm thinking like, wow, is this how designers like play games? Because I see why they're so different. Like, I couldn't really wrap my mind around how it was they were playing. And, now fast forward to today, and we'll be sitting around talking about stuff, and I'll say something, I'll be like, oh my God, that's how they do it. Like, I can't even think of anything right off the top of my head, but
yeah, but it clicks with you like,
yeah, like we're thinking about,
now I get it.
Yeah, we'll be talking about stuff, and I'll be like, oh, well, now I understand how that process works on the backside. And it's like being part of like behind the curtain in the Wizard in Oz. Like I know if you pull this lever and you tug that rope, it makes these things go. And
right.
It's very different, and you really can't go back from that. You really, that's something that's part of the way your brain thinks. You have to teach your brain to think that way. And then once you've taught your brain to think that way, it's kind of hard to turn it off.
Yeah.
It is. And that's part of the problem about having fun too, is when you're playing something that's already published, you need to shut that stuff down, because you're not going to have fun if you sit there and go, well, why did he give another longsword here? He definitely should have done a greatsword or something else, because other characters are going to be playing this through, and not everyone's going to be using longswords. Why would you
double up on that? Yeah, why would you double up on that treasure? Where's the treasure for the magic users? I mean, you've given away 4 shields. How many people are using shields in this party?
Yeah,
I mean, are we all paladins?
That would be a perfect place for a secret door. Why would they have a secret door there? That makes no sense. This is a perfect spot for one. You're going to ruin it for yourself. So yeah, you do kind of have to learn to shut it down, for the most part. And I do. And part of it is through my humor when we play the game, because I always joke that I'm the worst player. Like, I constantly am checking the rules and the books and everything. And one of my friends is like, dude, you wrote some of this. Why don't you know the rules better? And I said, because I'm a player. And that's literally like some of the races I created in Bluffside. I literally said, here's the fiction and here's what they are and how they are. You need to make sure it's balanced and it works. And the guy's like, dude, these guys have wings. I'm like, just make it work. And that's how the flying race got created. I came up with the concept. I loved the idea. I worked on the idea. Hell, my character for tomorrow, I wrote like a page and a half of fiction of a backstory for his first level character because I had this really cool idea. Sent it to the DM. I said, I know you're not going to use it for anything, but just in case you're curious, here's why this happened and here's why this happened. And, because I just kind of went on a little spiel one morning and I was like, I need to be creative. So I wrote a little backstory for my character for this week, for my new game. But, that's how it is. And meeting your idols and stuff is just very weird. And having them acknowledge you is almost weirder. Until you're friends. But that initial, like when I met Gary Gygax before he passed, and I got an autograph from him, and then he said, who are you? And I said, oh, Hal Greenberg. And he goes, oh, you wrote this stuff. And I'm like, oh, no way. So of course the first thing I did, after I cleaned up the poop that came out of my pants, I went to my table and grabbed like one of everything I had and said, like, hey, I know you can't carry this, but where are you located? I want to drop off, give you all of my stuff. I love you, man. And stuff like that. It's just weird to, what are you supposed to say, and I always brag that, and which is both of these facts are true, that I was the first person to hire both Monty Cook and Todd Lockwood after they left WotC during the 320 or the D20 craze. I was the first, people always would interview me back 20 years ago and ask me like, well, how did you get Monty Cook to do that? And how did you get Todd Lockwood? I'm like, I paid them.
I didn't freelancers.
know them. Yeah, I didn't know him. I asked him. I said, hey, I as soon as I saw Monty Cook leaving Wizards of the Coast, I messaged him and said, and I kind of knew him because of the couple of years when he was there, through, me. So, I mean, we knew each other by name per se, and, maybe by face, going through Gen Con and saying hi to each other. But that was it. But I said, hey, I saw that you left. If you're freelancing, I'd love you to do a prestige class for me. Here's the idea that I have. Can you make it? He said, sure. Here's how much it'll cost you. I said, I will send you the money when you're done. And that's kind of what I did with Todd Lockwood. I said, and Todd was a friend of mine, and I said, I can't afford you, but if you could just do one picture for our book, just one. And he's like, sure. I'm like, cool. And I mean, I paid him, but I'm just saying, it's not like I could, have him do the entire interior illos.
Right.
The worst thing that could happen is someone says no. I mean, it does come down to nothing ventured, nothing gained. Like, and I mean, people ask me to do stuff all the time, and I simply don't have time. I work a very stressful day job that is rewarding in its own right, emotionally, financially, and all that stuff. And so for me to want to do something in my spare time, it has to be the right thing. And I mean, I've kind of pretty much made it known that I just don't have the time or the energy for that kind of stuff. But I mean, if somebody came to me and said, hey, would you be interested in doing XYZ? I would be like, and it was the right thing, I would do it. You just never know. You never know what someone's going to say yes to, and asking never hurts. And not taking it personal when they say no is a strong ability to have, to know that.
Yeah. The easiest example I can say is people asked how I got Ed Greenwood to write for me in The Awakened, and the same answer was I asked him. Now, what they don't know is I also asked 50 other people that said no. Mm-hmm. That part you don't hear. What you see is Ed Greenwood said yes, which was awesome, and I do consider him a good friend, and I love that dude. And we worked with each other on a couple things now. But before that, I didn't know him. I asked him, and he said yes. Like I said, what you don't see behind the scenes is the 20 or 30 other people I asked who said no, including friends of mine. Now, that's also kind of weird. It's when you ask a friend, like, hey, you said you were bored the other day and you needed a creative outlet. Did you want to do this? No. Oh, okay. Well, I won't take that personally, but okay.
Not
But
too
no,
much.
it never hurts to ask. As long as yeah, I'll be okay. But as long as you are okay with any of the answers, you might as well ask. I've done stuff for free for people before, and usually now when people ask me to do stuff, it's minor, which is what I say yes to. If you're asking me for chapters in something, I'm going to say no, because like you, I've got projects I've promised that are already late, so it's going to be hard for me to sneak your project in. Now you need, you've got a really cool Elven book and you want to get some magic items done, or you want, some new spells or something kind of weird or creative that I can have a techie guy work with me on and bounce that stuff off him, and I can make up the cool stuff, for it, and he can balance it out. I probably will do that with people without much of a problem for minimum pay, or even just sometimes I'll do it for a couple copies of the book. And one is that's just so I can kind of keep my name going, but two is that's the part that I kind of have fun and I can do fairly quickly for people, and I don't feel bad, and I can usually deliver that, promise on time. But no, I say no a lot, and it stinks sometimes, especially on things that you're like, oh man, that would be really fun. But you need to say no if you can't do it, mentally, physically, emotionally, whatever, because there's nothing worse than saying yeah and then you being the reason why it's 6 months late, or you kind of messed with that guy, or they're counting on you. So that's another thing about if somebody's trying to break into the industry is, if somebody asks you for something, even for free, and you commit to it, you got to man up and do it on time, or be honest with them and ask them for an extension and tell them why.
Yeah. We've run into that a few times. It's been kind of tricky around here, and we have something big that we have been working on, and it's not a secret, but I'm not going to name it because that's not what we're here to talk about. But it has been a struggle because
no. Go ahead.
No, I don't want to out ourselves. Are you kidding? This is being broadcast. If it's late, we don't want everybody to know. No, just kidding. No, but it's been something that we've enjoyed working on, but it was definitely bigger than I think I realized. Andrew tells me he knew it was this big. Of course, Andrew likes to be a know-it-all when it comes to stuff like this.
Of course, yeah. Just like getting the board ready on time for today. He knows it all.
And now his phone has betrayed him.
It drives me crazy.
I know.
I was trying to see how long we had been talking for.
We've been talking forever.
Yeah,
it seems like we've been talking for at least 2.5 hours, because that's how long we did our sound check, and then it stopped. So
now I actually had a birthday the whole time we've been doing this.
Happy birthday, man!
Happy birthday, Hal.
Whew.
So
I'm telling you, yeah. I just got a message. I got fired from my job. I haven't been there in 2 weeks. What the hell's going on?
Man, I'd get fired from my job too. That would be bad. I like my job.
I'd get fired from my job, and that wouldn't be so bad.
No, hey, Andrew's looking for a full-time job. Do you got something there for him?
Honestly, do you know where I work?
No.
I can IM you afterwards. But they're always looking for stuff. So I have no problem being a reference for you and giving you the information, because some of the jobs are virtual, but you sometimes have to get into them later. Some of the jobs are local. So, but there's always a possibility. So I can message you. It's insurance, auto insurance. If that has no interest to you, I understand. I have no interest in it, but I've been doing it for 14 years, and I actually don't mind it.
Okay.
So, yeah, law enforcement was my first love, and I did that for a while, and then there was no money in it, and single dad, so I ended up moving to insurance, and
yeah, I can see where being a police officer, I can see where law enforcement and single parenting would be a little scary.
Yeah. Well, and both, it's a whole nother story.
That's
both
a whole different story.
Were single females. So when I said I couldn't do a raid on a Saturday night because it was my weekend with the kids, they were like, get a babysitter. And I'm like, I don't think you understand. Like, that's my weekend. Like, I'm not going to give up my weekend. I'll do it next weekend when you do it. We do this all the time. And they just kept giving me so much stuff. And I was like, you're not giving the women the grief? Well, because they have to take care of the kids. I'm like, so do I.
Yeah.
They just didn't get it. So I eventually said, if you keep putting this pressure on me, I'm leaving. And then when I gave my notice, they were like, what?
Surprise.
So, Yeah, it was all good. I did enjoy my time there while I was there. So, and I just found out last year that I actually get a pension from there. So I'll be getting a couple $100 a month starting at 55 from there. So I guess
wow,
That's
yay.
good.
hey, a couple $100
little surprise.
Whatever.
a couple $100 is a utility bill.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now I have to. Well, yeah, in Florida it's a couple bills because our utilities usually aren't that high. We don't really have winters or anything.
Yeah,
like
go
that.
ahead and rub
That's-
that in.
yeah,
Here, do you
rub
need some
that in.
salt for that? It's gonna snow and rain here tonight.
It might snow and rain here tonight too, and
Yeah.
by that I mean in my ice machine because I think it might hit 80 tomorrow.
I think Hal's cutting out. But what? Hal, are you there, Hal?
Yeah, it must be the heat. We're having some problems with the transmission.
Oh, but it is
But,
it is getting to be 10 o'clock, and Monica did say that she.
I had to be done by 9:30.
Yeah.
Oh, well, since we barely started there, I guess that would have been rough. But yeah,
It
no
was.
problem.
Yeah, no,
So,
well, thank you for joining us, Hal.
yes, absolutely.
Oh,
Thank you.
always a
thank you
pleasure
for,
to talk to you guys.
We pimped the Kickstarter and RCF, the RCRF charity. But if you guys want to follow, they're both on Facebook and Kickstarter under Isle of Bones.
Yeah,
And
please check them out. No pressure. Check them both out. We appreciate it. You guys, I always appreciate you guys. You guys are a bunch of fun. If you want me on, even when we're quote unquote not pimping something to discuss something stupid or odd, or
Absolutely.
you ever want to hear the story of how we destroyed the D20 industry, I'll be more than happy to.
That
go
sounds
through,
like
that could be a lot of fun.
Whole saga.
that sounds like a story worth hearing. But as I've been
Yes.
telling my friends, my story only costs you $6, and then you get an entire book of other people's stories for free, because that's
That
how
is
much.
very true.
That's what I told people I work with.
That's a great way of putting it. Yeah.
My
And you'll
story. That's
yeah,
the digital.
and it's a PDF. You'll have it forever.
Yes, you can look at my story all the
So
time.
I noticed when I was looking at the Kickstarter, real quick, as we're kind of wrapping up here.
All right.
It said the projected delivery is December of this year. Is that?
Did it say that?
I
It's
think-
not correct. I
Well-
think part of that is because of the possible hardcover. It may take a little
Right.
while. It takes a while, but in my opinion, if it funds, once the money is clear in that 3 to 4 week period, we're going to start sending out. We'll start sending out the PDFs right then and there, and then we'll start ordering all the books. So
that's what I
because
figured.
the soft cover's ready to go. So I think he was trying to cover himself just to be safe. But
which is
no, in my opinion, if it's good to go.
Yeah.
April.
That's kind of what I was figuring, but it was brought to my attention while I was telling somebody at work, and I
Yeah.
was like, I don't think that's going to be the case. So I just wanted to cover that here.
No, unless it's
anybody
the
else who saw it.
hardcover, because I know that there's a lot of technical weirdness. They keep sending copies back, and it's not right. We had a 6-month delay on the hardcovers for the last one we did, but the soft covers and the PDFs, the soft covers should be ordered at that point. So I would say 2 to 3 weeks for delivery after that. So maybe May 1st, and I'm thinking the PDFs will be right around the beginning of April.
While I can't sign your PDFs, I will happily sign any hard copy books you guys get.
Any physical copy.
I tell you what,
Yeah, any
if somebody,
physical
somebody
copy.
prints it off, I will sign it if they're desperate.
Exactly.
Well, there's
I've
actually a
signed
way
those.
you can digitally sign books. I had a website or a program that I did that for a while on the First Awakened, that I could digitally sign a PDF. I'll try to look that up. It's kind of a neat thing
That's
where
kinda
people
cool.
can post what they want, and then you can put your signature and dedicate it, and then it puts it on the cover page of their PDF.
Yeah,
It was a cool.
well,
That's
Adobe
cool.
Adobe will allow you to do because I have to electronically sign all of my documents. So Adobe does that. But I just want
It's
to
similar to that,
Okay.
but it's for the actual cover, or it's for your ebook, and it actually puts it on the ebook and whatever.
Just
But
like an-
it's a cool idea.
So really
So-
quick, I want to thank you for letting us be the Valentine's Day update.
oh yeah,
You picked my favorite scene
Oh,
that I can
no
talk
problem.
about publicly. That
No
scene
problem.
was
Yeah, that's a good one.
I think that scene probably is the crystallized moment of all three of us that we put into that book, because all three of us contributed to that scene in some meaningful way. That was like partially the scene you gave us that you had in mind.
Right.
And Andrew wrote, I wrote then the first draft around your words, and then Andrew came in and added Halifax's voice to Leandriel's voice, and that scene kind of between the three characters, that's probably one of my favorite scenes in the book. And I know it sounds weird because it's like one of the first scenes, but it sets the tone and the story so well, and it really does take all three of our voices and puts them together in the story. And given that they're three characters, it's kind of, I hate to say this because I don't want it to sound insulting, but I kind of always thought of you as Doniker.
Based on how much facial hair I currently have, I have no problem with that.
Well, thank you.
Although I will say, I did partly, because I always wanted to put myself in a book. So if you think about it, though, the dwarf named
Halifax. Yeah. I know.
That did not escape either one of us.
No, we both caught on to that.
I kind of did that as one of those, well, if I had to pick a character that I looked most like or a race, I'd actually have to say a dwarf. So if I'm going to be put in something, this is probably the most accurate, realistic thing I would put myself in.
So,
but no, it was a pleasure. It was great to work with you guys. It's a really fun project. The Awakened RPG is going to be just as fun and stuff like that for people who are more gamers than fiction. And, I just think it's a really kind of fun, neat, unusual setting. And, I think there's so many other worlds and places to explore. I hope we all get the chance to do that. And you guys are awesome, and all the stuff you guys are working on, I really enjoy keeping up with you guys. So it's always a pleasure. So if you ever need a sidekick, like I said, just give me a little bit of a heads up, and I'll kick you.
We are happy to have you back.
So go get some rest and go be good people. And unlike you, I get to roll out of bed and turn on my computer and work because I work from home, so it's a little easier for me. There's no get up and go time. I can just kind of roll in and turn on my computer and go. So you guys do what you need to do. It's a pleasure. If anyone out there isn't a friend of mine on Facebook, find me, and I think I liked a lot of the stuff that you guys posted, so with this, so just find me, and as long as I can see that you're a gamer and friends of Marlowe House, I'll accept you, and you can definitely see some of my, I'm very non-political, I'm more fun and nerdy on purpose. I just want peace and harmony throughout my Facebook page, so there's enough bad stuff out there, so I try to keep my stuff light and fun.
All right. Well,
but no, it's been a pleasure, and I like you guys on many different levels as creators and as as friends and hanging out buddies and stuff like that when I do get to Gen Con. So don't be strangers. People out there, enjoy their podcasts and keep listening and tuning into them. And I can now tell my son I'm officially a twatter, a twitcher.
No, stop. Just stop. This is a family show. Stop.
I can keep going.
Just stop. My children watch this.
I guess I'll be invited next time to
Absolutely.
The after hours.
Yes. Yeah, actually, we are going to do that.
Oh, okay. Because that one
we'll talk about that later.
Be more appropriate. Yeah. All right. But thanks, you guys, and thanks for those of you guys stuck around. Thanks, Mage, and you said Mike, right? And
we had a couple people.
Yeah. Michael and thanks all you guys for sticking around and saying hi and poking in. I appreciate it.
So I'm Monica Marlowe.
And I'm Andrew Marlowe. And
I'm Hal Marlowe.
And this has been
Insights and Inspiration.
Good night.
Good night.